Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Angelastro. I'm the Division Director for the Pharmaceutical Countermeasures Infrastructure Group within BARDA. I've been now with BARDA for about 16 years. I've seen a few pandemics and have realized that our manufacturing capabilities as a nation, we have the ability to really mobilize when we need to do the industrial mobilization that's necessary in a response scenario. But boy, wouldn't it be nice if we had some standing industrial base capabilities that were ready to go, and we had full visibility of that supply chain for responses. So, just like to give you a little pull the curtain back a bit on the PCI division and what we do within BARDA, because in reality we primarily support my colleagues here on the deck here, Chris's group and Kim's group, with their ARD efforts of qualified medical countermeasures and making sure that they have the subject matter expertise in the CMC space and process and product development space on their teams. And then in the background, we're also working on the manufacturability, resilience, and GMP manufacturing core services that are necessary for a rapid response scenario. So I'll go over a little bit of that shortly. But, and it's been said numerous times already this morning, and I made a note of it here, none of this is possible without our strong partnerships with our industry colleagues here in the room and on the web. You guys, you really do what, the yeoman's work in a lot of these activities, and your transparency with the BARDA team over the years has been instrumental in us moving our mission forward. And really, post-COVID, it's just great to see everybody face to face again in this setting. So kudos to everybody, and kudos to your commitment to the biodefense mission. Did I go too far? No, that looks right. So just to kind of situate, I haven't seen this slide pop up anywhere today, so I figure it's probably worth putting it up there. From a BARDA standpoint, we're kind of structured into three distinct domains, I would say. We have our Medical Countermeasure Program Office, which is headed by Dr. Johnson, who you heard before lunch. And then we have our Medical Countermeasure Support Services Program team, led by Dr. Lambert. And then we have our Contracts Management Group headed by Joffrey Benford. And that's kind of, we can see under the Program Office, the Pharmaceutical Countermeasure Infrastructure Group sits under there, again, bringing the manufacturing capabilities in a matrixed format to the rest of BARDA. And I'm going to try to do this in a tight 15 to get everybody to break, all right? The PCI team right now is about 55 people strong, heavily weighted with subject matter experts that handle end-to-end manufacturing concerns. Our mission, like I said, primarily to support our ARD program efforts on qualified medical countermeasures in that manufacturing space. But we also have a vision, and this vision is like a ChatGPT version of about 75 different policy documents that are floating around out there around how our nation needs to be ready to handle any type of response in a moment's notice and do it within 24 hours or whatever the latest timeline is that we're working off of. So I call it the magic vision. But really, we'd look at from a strategic approach standpoint, we pull the two elements that we focus on in the PCI division is that product development expertise in the CMC space, but then also looking at biopharmaceutical manufacturing capacity and trying to make sure that we have that infrastructure in place to strengthen our industrial base. And you heard a lot about that both in Dr. Disbrow and Dr. Johnson's briefings earlier this morning around, just not only having a robust industrial base to support our medical countermeasure enterprise, but also how we sustain that long term, right? It's the perennial issue that we deal with in the BARDA space. And to be quite honest with everybody, I wouldn't say it's gotten any better post-pandemic. You know, it's the panic neglect cycle may be setting in again in this area, and we just need to keep vigilant on that and continue to advocate for the importance of a strong industrial base. Speaking of post-pandemic, I think, you know, we looked at, you know, the National Biodefense Strategy, the BARDA Strategic Plan. We had a lot of input into the BARDA Strategic Plan, and then really took a look at how our PCI division was structured, and kind of did a little bit of realignment of duties within our group. So I thought it was important for, in this setting with our stakeholder community here today, just to kind of go over how we're structured in this space now. I have a branch chief now in charge of the Biopharmaceutical Manufacturing Preparedness Program, or BioMAP program. And I promised Tim Belsky I would say BioMAP or BioMAP Consortium at least 10 times during this talk. So please hold me accountable to that. And you'll hear a lot about that over the course of this afternoon and into tomorrow. I believe there's a session that Tim's hosting there, and you saw his video earlier. I have a manufacturing and resilience branch now structured within the group. This is kind of an output of the pandemic, actually, and that we had to really take a look at, the supply chain when it came to delivering both the therapeutics and the vaccines, and have a really strong understanding of the bill of materials and the services that were being utilized to manufacture those products. And I'm sure as many in this room are aware, and all the after-action reports that have come out since, supply chain constraints were painful across the board. And, the government in some cases had to exercise its Defense Production Act authorities to prioritize specific raw materials and supplies, which just added to the pain. So we're looking to have a lot more visibility into the manufacturability of our medical countermeasures, and ensure that as we progress in the development of those medical countermeasures that we have, that we're actually thinking about that with our industry partners as they move through the development activities. So it's not just kind of like a side project anymore. We want to make sure that that is an instrumental part of our development programs going forward. And then our third branch is our CGMP Capabilities Readiness Branch, and really a group that kind of is an outcrop of the support of the PCI division with the pandemic influenza program. As you know, authorities-wise, we've much of our pandemic influenza dollars over the year, we were lucky to have construction authority associated with that. So it wasn't just about the development of the next generation pandemic influenza vaccines, but also ensuring that our nation had those capabilities in country. So, with those construction authorities, we were able to bring on folks that have a background in vaccine manufacturing and facility design, such as myself, and build up some of that capability that Kim had discussed in her presentation. And we're going to continue to do that, with newer technologies like mRNA production, streamlining of monoclonal antibody production. We're very much nested in those arenas and trying really hard to figure out where the best places for the U.S. government to make strategic investments in that space. So that's how our three branches are structured. I'm going to jump now just to number 2, Biomanufacturing Preparedness Branch, or the BioMAP. Strategic initiatives associated with this branch are going to be, number 1, establishing that consortium, which you heard about today. You'll definitely want to reach out to Tim and his team. They're going to have an engagement booth set up, I believe, this afternoon, and then they're going to have that meeting tomorrow to go over the details, the finer points there. He also wants to establish a BioMAP exercise program, which I believe is, is just going to be a critical element of any future preparedness activity that we do within BARDA. It's not just going to be good enough to establish these capacities and infrastructure. We got to test them. We got to ensure it's a true capability, and we got to look for the gaps going forward. And on the opposite side, that's very expensive. So it's an unfunded activity right now, but we're looking to we're advocating for it and trying to educate our stakeholders in that arena. And of course, workforce, as Tim likes to say, workforce is infrastructure in this game. The folks that work in these facilities and manufacture these products are skilled trades folks, and we need to make sure that they have, that we have that workforce that we need to move the ball forward there. I'm going to skip that one in the interest of time and go to the BioMap Consortium membership benefits. Number one, it's free, just like the RRPV. You don't need a coupon, so just show up and sign up and get into the consortium. At a minimum, it'll gain you a little level of visibility into some of the requirements that are coming through BARDA. And it's our way within BARDA to leverage to the maximum extent possible our other transaction authorities in that space. Let's see, the manufacturability and resilience program, that our branch that we have within the PCI group is really, runs a lot of our industrial base expansion investments. And we talked about this at last year's BARDA Industry Day, so I wasn't going to dwell on it too much here. But that was over $1 billion in investments, mostly in a cost share arrangement with industry partners, first, second, third tier suppliers to the biopharmaceutical manufacturing arena, centered around mRNA vaccine manufacturing. But this team, right now has completely absorbed or taken over all the cooperative agreements and arrangements that we had in partnership with our DoD partners. They've now moved over to the HHS side, and they're managing these on a day-to-day basis, but also looking for other opportunities as we study manufacturability across our medical countermeasure portfolio. And as monies become available or funding becomes available, that's where we'll leverage the BioMap Consortium to seek out additional partnerships in this space. Kim's pretty much covered a lot of this, but just to center on where my group kind of focuses on the infrastructure elements. Obviously, major investments made over the years with domestic manufacturing of not only our egg-based flu vaccines, but cell-based flu vaccines or recombinant flu vaccines, all tied into seasonal influenza as part of that sustainment model. So it's kind of like out of all of our threat areas, this one's the easier one, I guess, right? Because it's got a sustainable model built into it in that there's a seasonal flu program in the background. But that doesn't mean that our capacities the capacities need to be built for a pandemic response, which means there is a carrying cost for these large capacities and capabilities that BARDA helps our industry partners sustain. And then we're obviously interested in those next generation technologies and and how we would bring those capacities to bear. Kim mentioned the mRNA influenza initiative. I wanted to put this up here just to foot stomp some of the sessions that Kim and her team are going to be having over the next tomorrow in this space, because I think it's just an important aspect of our pandemic influenza preparedness program to really engage with the industry in this space and make sure that we're in lockstep there. So one of the things I often say in this setting is just how proud I am of the team that I work with on a day-to-day basis. These are, just true professionals that have, in many cases, they're on their second or third retirement from industry and have decided to spend some time with us here in BARDA and lend their expertise, and not only to the BARDA team, but to to the entire industry that wants to partner with BARDA. And as of the last counting, I think we're over 700 years of real industry experience on the PCI team, and we're involved in some way, shape, or form with over 225 different contractual or agreement, cooperative agreement types across the BARDA organization. And just really proud of the team and their work that they do on a day-to-day basis. So PCI priorities, not going to rehash that. I want you to go and get acclimated with the BioMap consortium. That's really the thing I want the team here to the stakeholder community to be aware of, that we have that capability now. It is different from the RRPV consortium. Early on we discussed should we have one or the other, and the wisdom from Robert Johnson and company was, well, why can't we have both? It's not an or thing. We should have an and it's really not going to cost anything additional for BARDA to have an ARD-centric consortium and a biomanufacturing-centric consortium. So these two consortia that have been set up by the BARDA organization are going to be, we really want the stakeholder community to engage with that post this BARDA Industry Day. And I believe that's it. We're going to have 2 sessions tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll have a session with our colleagues in the ASPR's Industrial Base Management and Supply Chain Group office. It'll be myself, Rodney, and Arlene Joyner, who is now the director of that office within the ASPR. This is something I believe Assistant Secretary O'Connell talked about in her talk this morning, as a new group within the ASPR. And we want to make sure that it's clear to the stakeholder community what the differences are amongst the priorities from a mission support standpoint. And then, of course, as I said, the BioMap Consortium session, which will be occurring at 10 o'clock tomorrow. And with that, I want to thank everybody, and let's go to break.